Hallo und herzlich willkommen zu Was glaubst du denn? Dem Podcast über die Vielfalt des spirituellen Lebens von und mit Daniel Herbstreit. Hallo zusammen, die heutige Folge ist eine Ausnahme und zwar ist sie auf Englisch, weil Christopher Titmuss, mein Gesprächspartner, nur Englisch spricht und ich deswegen Englisch mit ihm sprechen musste. Zum anderen ist die Soundqualität dieses Mal wahrscheinlich nicht ganz so gut wie sonst, weil ich Christopher während einem Retreat im Waldhaus in der Eifel, das ist ein Meditationszentrum, interviewt habe und ich nicht so viel Equipment dabei hatte und außerdem der Raum, in dem wir das Gespräch aufgenommen haben, auch akustisch nicht so wahnsinnig günstig war. Sorry dafür. Ich hoffe, euch gefällt die Folge trotzdem, ihr nehmt trotzdem was mit und wenn ihr nicht so viel davon habt, dann freut euch aufs nächste Mal, da ist es wieder auf Deutsch und die Soundqualität ist auch wieder besser. Und jetzt wünsche ich euch viel Freude beim Zuhören.
Thank you so much for talking to me, for being on my podcast, Christopher. I've known you for a couple of years, and mostly from retreats in the Waldhaus here in the Eifel, close to the Lacher See. And just to say a couple words about you, you were a monk in Thailand in the Buddhist tradition from 1970 to 1976. And afterwards you became a Dharma meditation teacher. You're very well known for that role. You've traveled worldwide teaching the Dharma, teaching Vipassana meditation. And it's probably no exaggeration to call you one of the fathers, one of the instigators of the mindfulness movement. And I'm very happy we can talk about lightness and ease in meditation and in life. And I see two areas mainly that I would like to touch upon. One is lightness and easiness in relation to discipline and commitment in meditation. So I think in the classical terms that would touch upon right effort. And then the other one would be to talk about lightness and easiness in relation to pain and suffering. And I would like to start with the first one, so with the aspect of lightness and easiness in relation to discipline and commitment. And I have the question, as a teacher, you probably sometimes experience or talk to meditators and you maybe get the feeling that they're in danger of taking it too seriously. Maybe a bit, maybe a lot. Maybe it's the Dharma, maybe it's meditation, spiritual development, personal development. What do you do or say when you encounter someone, you get the feeling, maybe he or she's taking it too seriously?
Firstly, thank you for making the time to come and to have this interview together. I've been coming here to Germany since 1977, between 2 and 4 times a year. So I think I'm reasonably qualified with regard to the inner life of German people who attend the retreats and also the internationals who come here as well. The theme that you touched upon, lightness and ease, is truly an important theme. So let me first just give briefly a general overview. What I experience, not only here in Germany but elsewhere as well, is the enormous pressures that people are under. And those pressures are coming from outside of themselves to succeed, to do good, to make money, to have a successful life, but also from within. The high expectations that we can have of ourselves, the wish to be important, to have recognition, to be liked, to be loved, to succeed in study, in career, and so forth. So this combination coming from the outer, coming from the inner, one's own history, easily collide together. This generates in a way, the opposite to ease and lightness. It generates heaviness, a feeling of being weighed down by the circumstances of life and all the pressure and stress that goes with it. So you're touching upon a really, really important theme. And what easily happens, and in a way you alluded to this in your question, that of course, when people arrive on retreat, the person in a way is carrying all of that baggage. And of course, with it, there is a lot of seriousness that goes with it. And that then lands in the meditation room, it lands in the meditation, it lands in the mindfulness practices and more, which then intensifies the momentum of their practice. I hear this every day in various ways in the one-to-ones. It isn't easy, finally, to get, in a way, the balance right. Mindfulness, meditation, and depth is a genuinely serious exploration. It can't be treated too lightly, nor too superficially, because the benefits won't come. So it's finding, in Buddha language here, a middle way between intensity and lightness. And perhaps we can explore that as well.
Mm-hmm. So to come back to the question, so
Yes.
if you talk to someone and you get the feeling, oh, this person is carrying a lot of baggage and is maybe tense and taking meditation very seriously, for example, on a retreat. So what do you typically do, or
Yes.
how do you talk to that person?
Okay, so I have to speak in generalities, because the presentation of what the person says can vary a lot from one to the other. But as a general principle here, when the person is speaking to me and I'm picking up, usually not so much in the content, but more in the feeling tone in the voice, a certain intensity, a pressure to succeed in meditation or whatever, then I might well introduce the language of lightness or softness. So as an example, a person might be experiencing a hard, judgmental voice inside of themselves. I've got to succeed at this. I've got to achieve. I've got to keep still. I shouldn't move. I've got to do every sitting, walking, standing meditation, etc. So then my approach would then be to ask, what does the softer voice say? So the internal voice is really important. Can you, in the sitting meditation, say, open the eyes for a period of time, because that lets in and allows light and color. That's already softening. If you find yourself struggling with trying to keep still and not move, have you got the freedom, mindfully, just to change the posture so there isn't that intensity trying to hold the posture? More time outdoors on a retreat is beneficial. So every time there's the opportunity, and there are plenty during the day, go out, take the walk, feel life, let light and color in, let the sounds of the birds come in, feel the wind, the breeze on the body, etc. So all these are very practical steps towards the softening and lightening, yet being kind of quietly focused, which is the serious point with the retreat.
You personally, you strike me as someone who has a very good balance between taking it seriously, because you're a Dharma teacher, so you obviously take it all very seriously.
Yes.
But you're also very humorous, and your talks are also very funny and often light, despite being serious. So that was actually one of the reasons why I thought this would be a good theme to talk to you about. So I wonder, have you ever been in a situation where you thought, I'm taking maybe Dharma or meditation too seriously and I need to get lighter on it? Or was that never an issue for you?
As you ask, I can't recall specifically, but one of the thoughts that does arise as an example during my years as a monk, and as I like to remind people time to time, that my first 3 years or so was in a Vipassana monastery in Thailand. Books were actively discouraged reading by the teacher. We were encouraged to be outside of our huts so he could see us meditating, etc. there. And there was a certain kind of seriousness. I could pick up the times when the seriousness went steps too far, and that would show itself in just pushing the body too far. That could be sitting for several hours, standing without moving for several hours, and things like that. In my room, I would do yoga and developing all of that, also taking it too far. So the recognition of reaching the edges of what mind and body could take would show too much seriousness, and then coming back to a more center ground, which is kind of significant and really important, that there is a middle way in all of this. When it comes to the teaching role, as you mentioned, I use humor. There is kind of, quote unquote, a serious side to the humor. So what that means is, with the talks, as an example, generally speaking, anything between 40 minutes to an hour. So some of the teachings about dependent arising, noble effort, the deep meditations, and much, much more, it is a teaching of imparting knowledge. With the years of experience, I can see with my eyes while talking the sense what the receptivity is like. And very easily, for some of course, it genuinely is hard to follow, that's true. But quite often in the listening, I get the sense it's only going to the mental level, the intellectual, the thought level. And of course, I want to go deeper. So the serious aspect of humor is to bring the humor in. And that humor touches the feeling tones, touches the heart life. And with that, smiles can break out, giggles can break out, the humor. So that might be a personal story or a family issue, or in the opening talk yesterday evening, where people are bell ringing, which has, in the tradition, and a very important and honourable task, because people often don't want to use their watch or mobile phone there. So I'll make some comment about it. Some people ringing the first bell of the day are terrified of waking people up, etc. Or even the bell ringer can't hear the bell. Just small one-line comment. The story brings a bit of lightness to the seriousness of the open talk, but also it serves a purpose, that it's a way of reminding people of who are the bell ringers, and we have 1 a.m. way and p.m. every day, of the value of ringing the bell. So if a person gets to know the talk and know the humour, not always, but quite often, because of the feeling, emotional, sometimes physical response with humour, laughter, it's a real opportunity within a minute or two to point to something deep, in a sentence, in a short theme, or whatever, because the being is much more open. That's the power of humour.
So you use power as a key to the heart, so to speak.
Exactly. It's skillful means, I believe.
All right.
Okay.
I already mentioned it in the beginning that, if I'm not mistaken, this whole topic of balancing commitment and seriousness to lightness and ease would fall under the part of the Noble Eightfold Path called right effort, right? So I wonder, does the Buddha say anything about this balance in his talks?
Yes, it doesn't use the word balance so much. Coming back to the seriousness, you will know as well as I that there was, I'm using past tense here, a general conception in the persona of citizens of Germany that it's a very serious culture. It's kind of internationally known. But in experience now, what am I talking now? Gosh, 40, 45 years of the regular visits. The culture here has changed a great deal.
Does it?
Considerably. And that seriousness, I think, from my time coming here in this latter part of the 70s onwards, there was still generationally some shadows from World War, guilt, and self-blame, and all of that was there. The very fact that in the first years of coming, in one way or another, the war would always get mentioned. Either because of the parents, or the grandparents, or the loss, or how could we, a civilized country, got ourselves into this mess, etc. There, those voices are very, very rare these days on the retreats. Occasional, but very, very rare. And the humour, the lightness, the playfulness, the receptivity to humour, the laughter, the physical sounds coming out, that's grown exponentially as well. So my view these days is in the regularity of coming, listening to people every day, that the seriousness and being German, I think that's more in history. Which is healthy for everybody.
I actually had that question in mind, but then I dumped it. Now you
I'll answer it. Coming back to the good point you mentioned with effort, the Pali and the translation into English are not always in synchronicity. So fortunately, over the years, initially inspired by a German monk named Wimelo, who's now, must be in his early 90s, he's about 12 years older than me. He and I knew each other when I was a monk. So we're talking early 70s now. And I would come and visit him in his hut, which was a few hours away. He lived very remotely. And take with me Middle-Length Discourses, one of the major books. And where I had a question in the Pali, in the English, and ask him what the Pali was. He could read Pali effortlessly. And through his inspiration, I began to see the nuance in language like right effort. So the word right sometimes has an ethical basis to it. So it's not making an effort to harm, to cause suffering, to exploit, etc. So there's the right with the ethic. But its most frequent use, the word is samma. Sam means coming together, like samkara, samadhi, and it's that which is contributing, coming together for nourishment and for fulfillment. And effort is the application of energy which is nourishing and contributing to fulfillment. And therefore, with that, sometimes it requires some effort to overcome, but it's only one aspect of effort. Another aspect, this is the Buddha, is the effort sometimes required to develop, to make a change in our life. Sometimes the effort is to avoid. It's an effort. The alcoholic avoids going into the pub. Things like that. the fourth one, slipping from the mind, it's to maintain. So sometimes we look at our life and we say, what do I need to develop? What do I need to sustain, which is worthwhile and nourishing? What do I need to overcome, which is problematic and an issue there? What do I need to avoid, which is not healthy for me? So the importance of that, it's quite different from, meditation, mindfulness, practice requires so much effort all the time. That's seriousness. That's a recipe for stress. Mm-hmm. That's a generalized overview. Mm-hmm. So it's the teachings are very, very specific, like the 4 examples that I just gave there. And therefore to recognize there are times when we are relaxed, we are at ease, there is no weight in our mind there, and there's no effort. There is enjoyment, there is receptivity, there is natural interest, and it doesn't feel in any way I'm having to make an effort. Mm-hmm. And those times are important and are precious, and it's important for the meditator as well to anybody else to recognize them, so that we're not carrying around a unhealthy and unwise viewpoint. You only succeed if you put in lots and lots and lots of effort. This way, one might succeed, but the pattern of the effort will sooner or later generate a lot of stress and suffering. Mm-hmm.
So if I understood you correctly, then this balancing does not necessarily fall under a right effort, because right effort has like a distinct meaning.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. I rarely, I've used it already, but rarely use the word balance, because when we look at ourselves, we hear this language of getting right life balance, whatever, between work and leisure, as an example. It's a very tricky area there. I caution against that. It easily plays into the mind, I'm working so much, I need more time off, not to have to work, to put time with the family or my friends or the outdoors or whatever. I don't think the leveling out of the time will do it. Mm-hmm. So we might keep telling ourselves, I should work less in order that I have more. In my listening to people, it might make some change. The problem actually is really, what is the relationship to work that in my relationship to it, it's leaving me with an impression at the end of the day or during the day, this is too much, this is too hard, I'm doing too much. So instead of trying to find the balance, one is look at what is the change in attitude or view, what will contribute to ease and lightness while in the workplace. Mm-hmm. And that's where the priority has to be. Mm-hmm. And if we get that right, the distinction between working and not working, the distinction is much less. And the key, like with so many things, is love. If one has love, love is usually in the workplace, one is engaged in some form of service. Through the arts, through service to people, to creatures, to the environment, of creativity.
Service to the company, service to profit.
No, it won't do it. And the reason it won't do it, because the company want that. That's why they bring in the mindfulness teachers, so there's less stress, so that people can be more in the work environment for the end. But the inner voice might seem one is kind of obedient or to the values of the workplace, or the bosses, or the management, or the CEO, but that relationship won't touch the inner voice, the deep inside, because there's some deeper value and deeper ethic which is being ignored, and what becomes the goal will be exactly as you said: profit, success, market dominance, and all of that. That will never be fulfilling. No matter how big the financial reward, no matter how high the status in the hierarchy of the work environment, it will never be fulfilling. And if one really listens to the voice, then not for me to say what is fulfilling, but that isn't. But to listen to the voice, and that, out of that, something else may touch.
Mm-hmm.
And plenty people that I know, who were past tense successful in the work dominated, sometimes private and public sector, listen to that voice. It just wasn't fulfilling. It wasn't nourishing. In fact, often did not like the job, did not like the work, despite significant remuneration there. And a common feature of those who rather boldly, in a way, made the change, there was often a significant drop in the income, because they made a change from where they were there, and they preferred living much, much more modestly, and at the same time staying true to a value and an ethic. That's a common story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm totally on your side here.
Thank you. It's good. And I'm on the side, obviously, with the encouragement as well. And sometimes when people are really on the horns of a dilemma, it's not easy, especially if one's got family duties, one's got kids, one's got a partner, and so forth.
Maybe a house to pay off.
At the mortgage and so forth. For some, it really is a major step. And sometimes to give a little bit of encouragement, there's on the one side, in the dilemma of the choice of a certain kind of security, income, profit, status, and paying the bills and so forth there. And on the other, sometimes it requires family cooperation as well here to take the leap or the steps into another way of life. Sometimes for some it's meant moving out of the city, really a significant change. But there's something about, do I try and stay safe, which is not necessarily safe anyway, but try to stay safe, or life is short, let's take some risks in keeping loved ones. Others, the more conservatives, will say to people who do this, you're crazy. You're mad. You're giving up an amazing career. You could be earning this amount of money in 5 years' time, and so forth. What the hell's got into you? And one has to weather the storm of that, sometimes from parents. And the same thing happened 2,500 years ago. One successful young guy, also to please his parents, just got out of it and just followed this nomadic way of life. And his parents were furious with him. They let them down, all the work they put into him. And he said quite bluntly, I've looked at your life and I don't want to live like that. Yep, things haven't changed that much.
And then he became the Buddha, right?
No, you weren't. Yeah, this is one of the so-called followers, not the Buddha.
Oh, okay.
And this not happened just once.
Mm-hmm.
Many left the so-called security of the caste system in India, following in your father's footsteps, as the Buddha was expected to, king to prince and so forth. And they just, no, not for me.
Yeah.
And some of us, and I'm one of those, went from being a journalist with some prospects with the career to stepping out of it, getting on the road, taking ordination. It's a similar kind of story there, and people are doing it with loved ones, family and friends, making the change.
You mean including family and
Yeah. They need to be really well informed. If a person is experiencing doubts, is willing to downsize at every level, take some risk, listen to what the partner, the kids might say, and so forth there. And sometimes it's a collective decision, but to make it not too serious, again, certain lightness in it, and with all, especially youngsters, to give them the sense this is an adventure. Shall we try it?
Yeah. Maybe one last question about coming back to the topic of humor and lightness. Did you find any traces in the Pali discourses of the Buddha that he was a humorous person? Did he have good humor?
There are, and some of the scholars of the Buddhist text have dug out a few places. Though, as we talk, nothing specifically comes to mind. The Buddha's comments sometimes on others has some humor in it. But in a way, the more important factor with this is, in the tradition there is this word dukkha, which has a whole range from unsatisfactoriness to the hell of suffering and so forth. And the antidote is happiness, which therefore includes the humor. And for everywhere there is the dukkha, there is the sukha. That means the sense of happiness, the sense of well-being. And when the Buddha was asked, why do we live this way of life, a nomadic, free-spirited way of life? And his response was, it's because it's such a happy way to live. And the change that's taking place historically, and it's an important one, is that the caste system then, people were very much engaged in their caste. It wasn't like you could change caste. You were born into it, you died into it. So it was a freeing up from the caste system to a completely caste-less way of life that was free-spirited. What we have today is a precious opportunity to actually integrate. So, as an example, people going on pilgrimages, families going on walks, friends of mine, family, husband, wife and two kids, went to Turkey, and they walked from one end of Turkey to the other, 801 kilometers, and trusted that it would all work out all right. They received from the Muslim communities in the villages the usual Islamic hospitality of extraordinary order. I saw photographs and they told me stories about it, with lots of humor and play, and the kids had an incredible time. I think they're about age around 12 and 8 years of age. And people had the opportunity as well, like you and others, coming on retreats and so forth. So all of that lends to a lot of friendship, natural humor, love and appreciation of each other, playfulness, and so forth. Some very deep friendships emerge out of these gatherings, and all of that is part of the humor, of the enjoyment, and that has to be naturally, easily. Then the more serious ones, there are plenty of deadly serious Buddhists around, and have odd sort of view about lightness, being really at ease, humor. So the deadly serious ones will say, oh, the Buddha said life is suffering, which is complete nonsense. Never said anything even remotely close to that. But suffering arises because there are the conditions for it, not some sweeping generalized statement. Sometimes the deadly serious Buddhists will say, oh, the Buddha never laughed. he just occasionally smiled, revealing his 2 front teeth, I think. This doesn't say anything about the Buddha, it says something about the person. That's the absurdity of seriousness.
Yeah, I would also, I can't imagine the Buddha not laughing.
I mean, it's incomprehensible for someone who's a free spirit. And certainly the teachers that I had, Darüber, the Vipassana teacher, gave a talk every evening, 365 days a year in the hall. In a way, he was a bit of a teacher on humour as well. And there's a certain freedom of spirit and independence of outlook and kind of thinking outside the box and very straightforward. So to give a small example with him, 2 coaches of lay people coming to the monastery. They were devotees from another city, but devotees of this teacher. And they said they'd like to give some dana to the nuns. And we had probably 80 to 100 nuns in the monastery and the same number of monks there. So in the hall, Ajahn said to the nuns, wear your oldest robes with the most tears and the most worn out, because the Buddha will come. And that got the monks and the nuns giggling, and the next day they all turned up in it. They don't get the dana personally. It goes to the monastery, and then it's the needs of the nuns like that. And one of the monks was regarded as a saint in the monastery, was often asked by younger monks to share his wisdom, etc. And he commented, and the Ajahn heard about this, I'll be a much better teacher when I'm dead, to see the dead body. The outcome of that was, when he died, he was injected with formalin, which is to preserve the body, and they sat him in the grounds, not every day, in the sitting posture while we were doing our meditations around. And lay people would come, even the Thais were a bit shocked to see this corpse sitting there. I have a photograph of the Ajahn and myself and the dead monk in the standing posture, and we holding his hand to keep him upright.
Yeah, I think I've seen this picture.
Yeah, exactly. These things went on in the monastery with much humour and playfulness, even able to treat death lightly.
Yeah.
Even to be at ease with it. Once or twice a week, the devotees with family members had died, brought in, put on the wood, light the fire, get die. All beings are subject to birth, aging, pain, and death. It's part of the chant in the death ceremony. And still, good humour.
Yeah.
Even in the midst of it. In the West, seriousness is a bit all pervasive. Because a funeral and death is a sad time. There it needs to be acknowledged and recognised. But also, can there be an understanding? It doesn't have to generate a lot of grief and anguish. Hey, this is life, birth, aging, pain, and death.
All right. I think this is a perfect last statement, isn't it?
All right, good.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, if I could just say one more sentence.
Yeah, sure.
In all of this which we shared, and mentioning just in the opening talk yesterday evening, sometimes, quite often, some of the seriousness, and it requires seriousness, with regard to our roles, with regard to our duties and our commitments, etc. And I think quite naturally, there's an appreciation sometimes of temporarily being out of the role. The day finishes. So there's a relaxation in the being, a certain feeling of lightness and ease with it, to really recognize that feeling tone of, even at the retreat. People love the retreat, and then somebody, finish complete whatever, or a certain task. It's that I know when writing books, finished, thank God for that. Whatever. In Dharma language, it's not only lightness and being at ease, but also equally important, it's a freeing up of the being. And so when we're experiencing lightness and being at ease, we're also experiencing this freeing up. And the teachings are pointing this to this, it's liberating there. Can we find this liberation, being at ease with life, even in and through our roles? Mm-hmm. So therefore, we can be a monk, we can be a nun, we can be a householder, we can be a parent or whatever, we can be a worker, and this is the opportunity we have in the West to see the recognition of the roles, find that freeing up which takes place and being at ease with it all.
Yeah, and I'll be happy to get rid of the role of the podcaster after this interview.
Thank you.
I'll relax.
I'm in the same club. Thank you.
Thank you.
Das war's für heute von Was glaubst du denn? Dem Podcast über die Vielfalt des spirituellen Lebens. Ich hoffe, es hat euch gefallen. Wenn ihr Verbesserungsvorschläge, Kritik oder Ideen habt, wen ich unbedingt interviewen sollte, schreibt gerne einen Kommentar oder eine Nachricht. Der tolle Titeltrack, den ihr hier hört, heißt übrigens Owl und ist von Phantom Horse. Ich danke euch fürs Zuhören und freue mich schon aufs nächste Mal.